Hello! Today we are going to be in what we call lesson 6.4, converting units of measurements. So if I would ask you how many days are in a week, well, that one's really easy. We know that there's 7 days in 1 week. But if I would ask you how many hours are in 1 week, that can be a little bit more complicated. And if I ask you how many hours are in 2 weeks, well, that gets more complicated still. And so I'm going to teach you today how to use math to figure out those conversions. So if we look, our ratios in conversions always equal 1. So if I say 7 days to 1 week, that still equals 1, right? Because 7 days to 1 week is the same thing as 7 days to 7 days. So that's 1. So every time I do a conversion where I've got one type of thing on the top of the line and the other type of thing on the bottom, it always still needs to equal 1. Okay? So if we look down at this example, how many hours are there in 2 weeks? Well, the first thing we need to do is create our first fraction. And we do that by putting the number they want us to find out, the 2 weeks, over 1. And then we need to figure out, how do I get from weeks to hours? There's something in the middle here, right? Weeks can easily be divided into days, and days can easily be divided into hours. And so we look at the largest period of time, which is our weeks, and then we break it down into days, and then we break it down into hours. So those are the conversions that we're going to be using. So I start by writing my original fraction, which is 2 weeks over 1, right? Then I multiply it with the next fraction being weeks down in the denominator, and the next unit being in the numerator. So again, we know in 1 week, there are 7 days. Then I go 1 more, and this time I put days down in my denominator, and I put my next unit up in my numerator. And I know in 1 day, there are 24 hours. And so if I've created this chain correctly, I can cancel out units that are across from each other. So this weeks gets canceled out by this week, and this days gets canceled out by this day. So I'm left with hours, which is what I want. And then I multiply 2 from here times 7 times 24, and I get 336. And then I do 1 times 1 times 1, which just gives me 1. So I'm left with 336 hours are in 2 weeks. So once you break it down, it's actually pretty simple, right? Let's try one more example together before we go on to our practice problems. And again, I'm only going to do a few practice problems, but I'll leave the answers to all of the practice problems with Miss Laura So you can check your answers as you're working. Okay, a recipe calls for 6 kilograms of ground beef. At the grocery store, Marissa finds ground beef in 2-pound packages. How many packages of ground beef should Marissa buy? 1 pound is approximately equivalent to 0.454 kilograms. So she's wanting to find out how many packages to buy, right? So 1 package holds 2 pounds. And I'm eventually wanting to get to packages per recipe, right? So my next grouping, I want to get rid of these pounds. So I have 1 pound, and they tell me that 1 pound equals 0.454 kilograms. Then my next one is how many kilograms are in a recipe. And it is 6 kilograms for 1 recipe. So if I math this out, I can cancel out my pound here and my pound here because they're across from each other. I can cancel out my kilogram here and my kilogram here. And when I do my math, I get 1 times 1 times 6, so 6 packages per 2 times 0.454 times 1. And that equals out to about 6.6 packages per 1 recipe. So if she's got 6.6 packages per recipe, she needs to buy 7 packages. Okay? So let's do a few of our practice problems together so you can get used to creating your conversion ratios, because that's probably the hardest part of this whole thing. Joanne bought 7 yards of fabric to make a bedspread. What is the length of the fabric in inches? Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to take this 7 yards and put it over 1, right? Then I know that eventually I'm trying to get to inches. And so this second fraction needs to be yards down here in the bottom so that my yards will cancel out, and inches up here in the top. And so I know, or I can find out, that in 1 yard there are 36 inches. And so my yards cancel out, and 7 times 36 is 252 inches. Number 3, Which of the following is equivalent to 350 meters? So I'm trying to figure out how many kilometers is equal to 350 meters. Well, I start with 350 meters over 1. But I know I want to end with kilometers, right? So this next fraction, my meters, needs to be in the denominator so that the meters are across from each other and can cancel out. And my kilometers go up top. And my hint tells me that 1 kilometer equals 1,000 meters. So then I have 350 times 1 is 350 over 1,000. And that, when I divide it out, is 0.35 kilometers. So it's pretty easy if there's just one conversion ratio that we have to do, right? We know that our second fraction, the same measure that was in the top of the first fraction goes into the bottom of the second fraction. And the measure that we want for our final answer goes in the top. But let's try one where we actually have a few conversions that we need to do. Let's go to number 8. Go down just a little more. So for number 8, there's a lot going on in the question. Sandra wants to buy new carpeting for her bedroom. The floor measures 18 feet by 21 feet. So we're looking at a width and a length, right? What are these dimensions in yards? So that means we need to have 2 sets of calculations going on. We need to be finding her length, and then we need to find her width. So we're starting in feet. So our first fraction for length is 21 feet over 1. We're wanting to end up in yards, right? We want our final answer to be so many yards. But to get to yards, if I've got feet here and yards here, what I need to get in between there is inches. So I need a fraction that has feet down here and inches up here, so that I can have a new fraction that has inches down here and yards up here, right? Because eventually I want everything to cancel out except for my yards. So there are 12 inches to 1 foot. And then there are 36 inches in 1 yard. So again, I'm wanting my feet to cancel out because they're across from each other, and I'm wanting my inches to cancel out because they're across from each other. So then I do 21 times 12 times 1, which is 252, over 1 times 36, which is 36. And 252 divided by 36 is 7 yards. So from there, I could go ahead and know that my answer is D, right? Because 7 yards, that's only in one of these calculations. But let's go ahead and find the width, just for the practice, okay? So again, I take my width, 18 feet, and I put it over 1. That's my first fraction. But again, I'm trying to work myself over to yards. And if I'm going feet to yards, my next fraction is going to involve inches. So I've got feet down here, and in 1 foot, there are 12 inches. Then my last conversion, I'm going to have yards up here and inches down here. Because remember, what was up here in the numerator, the next fraction over needs to get down into the denominator. And in 1 yard, there are 36 inches. So in this time, I do 18 times 12 times 1, and that gives me 216. And 1 times 1 times 36. And 216 divided by 36 is 6. So yes, that is 6 yards by 7 yards. The last one I want to do together is number 11. The rest of them I think you can probably do on your own with these as an example. But remember, you can always ask Miss Laura for help. So, actually, you know what? Let's do 12. Let's do water, because we've already done grams to kilograms, which is really similar to miles to kilometers. So let's do water. Let's do number 12. An Olympic swimming pool holds approximately 660,000 gallons of water. About how many liters of water are in an Olympic swimming pool? Use 1 gallon equals 3.79 liters. So again, I take my initial value, 660,000 gallons, and I turn it into a fraction. Then I want my second fraction. Gallons is in the top in my first fraction, so gallons needs to be in the bottom of my next fraction. And they tell me that 1 gallon equals 3.79 liters. And I want my answer to be in liters, right? So if these guys cancel each other out, liters is what I have left. So this is the only conversion I need to do. So I'm looking at 660,000 times 3.79, and that's going to give me 2,501,400 liters. Because my dividing is 1 by 1, right? Okay, that is conversion ratios. So feel free to look over this video as many times as you need to. Remember to ask Miss Laura for any help you need. Also remember that the problems that I did not do as examples in this video, I still have in a photocopy that Miss Laura has. So if you want to keep working on these and check your answers, ask her for my key for this lesson and you can check your work. Hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you soon.